Chapter 4, Section 4, The Golden Age of Maurya India. Think about someone you admire and respect. What traits does that person have? How does she or he act? How could you be more like that person? Questions to think about as we go through this video. Why is the Maurya Empire considered a golden age in India? And number 2, why is Ashoka considered one of India's greatest leaders? Key terms that have been defined for you through the Google Classroom: absolute power and convert, or to convert. Key people will be Chandragupta and Ashoka. Please make sure to have your Google Doc out that have questions that correspond with this video and answer them as we proceed through and you find the answers. Around 330 BC, a new ruler came to the throne of a kingdom in northeast India. Within 35 years, the tiny kingdom grew into the giant Maurya Empire. The first king of this empire was Chandragupta Maurya. Chandragupta lived in a grand style. A Greek traveler described the impressive sight that greeted him at the king's court. The royal palace was supported by great wooden pillars and coated with gold. In the park where the palace stood, fountains sprayed the air and fish splashed in the ponds. Scores of servants waited on the king. Chandragupta enjoyed luxuries from all parts of Asia. When the king appeared before his subjects, he was often seated in a golden chair carried on his servants' shoulders. Sometimes he rode on an elephant covered with jewels. Building the Maurya Empire. India was made up of a number of warring states before Chandragupta came to power. Strong and ruthless, he founded the Maurya Empire. His armies overthrew kingdoms along the Ganges River. Turning west, his armies advanced into the Indus Valley. Only a few years later, his power extended over most of north and central India. Chandragupta was guided by the basic belief that a ruler must have absolute power or complete control over the people. This idea came from a book of advice called The Science of Material Gain. The book urged kings to control all their subjects and to maintain an army of spies to inform on them. Chandragupta commanded a huge army. Thousands of foot soldiers and mounted troops were ready to maintain law and order and to crush any revolts. The army also had 9,000 war elephants, which struck fear into the hearts of opponents. Prosperity and poisoners. Under Chandragupta, the empire enjoyed great success. Most of its wealth came from foreign trade. The Maurya Empire built up a widespread trade with such faraway places as Greece, Rome, and China. However, as his rule continued, Chandragupta became fearful for his life. Thinking poisoners were everywhere, he made servants taste his food. To avoid being murdered, he slept in a different room every night. One story says that he finally became a monk in South India. Fasting and praying, he starved himself to death. Maintaining the empire. Chandragupta did not gain wealth for himself only. Though his rule was harsh, he used his wealth to improve his empire. New irrigation systems brought water to farmers. Forests were cleared, and more food was produced. Government officials promoted crafts and mining. A vast network of roads made it easier for Maurya traders to exchange goods with foreign lands. Chandragupta's leadership brought order and peace to his people. Ashoka, a father to his people. When Chandragupta died, the empire passed to his son. When the son died, Chandragupta's grandson, Ashoka, gained power. Ashoka, whose name means without sorrow, further expanded Chandragupta's empire. By the end of his rule in 232 BC, Ashoka had built the greatest empire India had ever seen. The Battle of Kalinga. For more than 35 years, Ashoka ruled an empire that included much of the subcontinent of India. During the first years of his rule, Ashoka was as warlike as his grandfather. He conquered new territories to the east. Early in his rule, Ashoka led his army south into the state of Kalinga. He won a bloody battle in 261 BCE, in which more than 100,000 people died. The great slaughter at Kalinga was a turning point in Ashoka's life. He was filled with sorrow over the bloodshed. He gave up war and violence. He freed his prisoners and restored their land. Later, he converted or changed his beliefs to Buddhism. Asoka spreads Buddha's message. Asoka practiced and preached the teachings of Buddha. He did not allow the use of animals for sacrifices. He gave up hunting, which was the traditional sport of Indian kings. Asoka thought of his people as his children. Like a father, he was concerned with their welfare. He had hospitals built throughout his kingdom. He even had wells dug every mile beside the roads so that travelers and animals would not go thirsty. Asoka was also concerned with his people's moral and spiritual life. To carry Buddha's message throughout his vast empire, Asoka issued writings of moral advice. Some writings urged people to honor their parents. Others asked people not to kill animals. Still others encouraged people to behave with tolerance and truthfulness. Asoka also issued laws that required people to be treated with humanity. His advice and laws were carved on pillars of stone 30 to 40 feet, 9 to 12 meters high, and these were throughout his empire. One pillar bore these words: "Both this world and the other are hard to reach, except by great love of the law, great self-examination, great obedience, great respect, and great energy." Asoka's tolerance for others allowed him to accept Hindus. Many of Buddha's teachings became part of Hinduism during Asoka's rule. Buddhism grew under Asoka. He sent missionaries far and wide to spread its message. It was missionaries sent by Asoka who spread Buddhism to China. Asoka's sister and brother went to Ceylon, which is today the country of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka can be found here, just south of India, and here as well. He sent them as Buddhist missionaries. He even sent teachers to Greece, Egypt, and North Africa. At Asoka's death, India was united as never before. However, the great Maurya Empire declined after his death. Without his strong rule, his territories divided. Small states began fighting with one another. Several centuries of invasion and disorder followed. It took almost 600 years before India was united again. This is the end of the section. There are a few questions you should be able to answer. Number 1, how did Chandragupta and Asoka build a great empire? Number 2, why could Asoka be called a father to his people? And finally, how did Buddhism in India influence the empire of Asoka? Please make sure you have used this video to complete your Google Doc through the Google Classroom, which is your homework assignment. Make sure the questions are answered and to submit it by tomorrow morning. And once you have done that, we will see you in class then. Be excellent to one another.